Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about my favorite topic, which is getting into creative flow. The creative flow state is a place which is always here, always available, but many people either don't know how to access it or think that it is just something that happens by accident, or they don't have these tools and techniques to get there. It is so important to be able to get into creative flow, the flow state, because at this moment in time, 2025, we are being impacted and affected by the media and the software and technical and AI upgrades at such a dramatic level that there is as a 10 billion times bigger fight for our attention than there was even 5 or 10 years ago. I also believe that I'm a good one to talk about creative flow state because until I was 46, I had undiagnosed attention deficit distractibility disorder, which is a neurodiversity. And yet I managed to write 2 books, create over a dozen step-by-step courses, launch a business, live a fully functioning life, and competently move through this world. And I didn't lose my keys more than about a dozen times. The way I was able to do this was a few things that I will share with you today. I think that creative flow is our birthright. It is our soul's need. We are all incredibly unique. Every experience of life is incredibly unique, and that flow state consciousness is where we express what we're here to express in a tangible form. So whether it's writing, which I do, whether it's painting, whether it is building a new car, where it's coming up with a new mathematical or scientific formula, it doesn't matter what it is, we are all inherently creative beings. Creativity is an aspect of human life that is undeniable. Even a leaf, everything is creative that we're looking at. It's come from nowhere to here. And so by tapping into creative flow more and more, we will be living to our full potential. There is a guy that I really like. I've read all of his books, psychologist, Dr. Benjamin Hardy. That's right. He talked in one of his videos, it's no longer available on his channel, but I remember last year he was talking about the peak state, peak experiences. And he was saying that when you can focus on something for 3 hours at a time, or have deep work time, as Cal Newport refers to it, that is actually a peak experience. And so building in a flow state of being into your everyday life, whether it's writing or time when you're doing the cooking or composing music or channeling art or speaking or whatever it is that you are focused on doing in this lifetime and the work that you love to do, you're actually creating peak experiences over and over in your body and your psychology. And I believe this is absolutely true. I noticed myself yesterday, I hadn't had any kind of productive day aside from my journaling, which I always do in the morning. I hadn't been doing any of my writing or my creating, which I love to do, for I think it was 5 days. And yesterday I went into the zone at about 2 p.m. and I didn't look up until 9:30. And I was just so free. I felt so free. There were moments in that block, that 7.5 hour block, which I was just in a bliss state. I wasn't actually thinking. You're beyond thought. You're just in this, it's flow state. And that's what I love about it. So flow state to me is when you're not thinking, you're not overthinking. Obviously your brain is still working, but it's not a list of worries and demands. So you're not thinking and you're not in the future or the past. You're literally present in what you're doing. And athletes access it it's just focus, hyper focus. And it is a peak experience if you can build this flow state into your day. So I'll tell you a few things that help me to get into the flow state. First of all, sleep. Okay, sleep is absolutely crucial. Sleep is when we reset. I read that James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, and which is all about hacking habits and being more productive, and even the gym and training and all of that, he had a rule, which I don't think he's put this in that book, that if he stayed up too late, so if he stayed up past 10 or 11, so he was only going to get 5 hours of sleep, he wouldn't get up at 6 the next morning. He knew that he needed 8 to 9 hours to achieve that flow state while he was writing his book and doing his other things, which I believe he was doing really heavy lifting at the gym, working on his book and writing his blogs. So he was keeping it really simple. And I really believe that's true. I need at least 8 hours of sleep, and I notice that my thinking, my body, my emotions, my feelings, all of it starts to get very weak and easily swayed and emotional and everything else when I haven't had a good night's sleep. Now, this is just such a basic thing, but we don't talk about it or honor it. Sleep is so crucial to human life. And so it's that sleep that resets the central nervous system and our bodies and our minds. It is so crucial to our minds that athletes know this. The sleep that they get is absolutely built into their training and their nutrition programs. But I don't know why the rest of us don't talk about this. And Einstein, I believe, used to have naps in the afternoon. If he was reached a set point on his project or experiment, he would go and have a nap. And you don't even need to fall asleep. You can just be in that sort of lucid, out of the mind state, letting go stage to get benefits from a nap. So sleep is crucial to me, and fresh air and walking outside. Walking in nature is a big one for me because I'm not being distracted by any man-made structures or thought patterns or programs or conditioned responses. What I mean by that is if I'm walking past shops or crowds, I start to become aware of other people and their needs, and I start to become aware of the world and what I could do and what that could mean, and it's all of that. Whereas in nature, so there's all the thinking that starts coming in, all these messages and ideas that aren't me, that aren't the big picture me. Whereas in nature, the forest particularly, where no one is around and I can just speak or hum or meditate or pray or whatever I feel like doing, it's a way for me to lose that awareness of the three-dimensional world and go into a higher, big picture way of thinking and experiencing myself and life that leads to this inner freedom that then I can come back and go, okay, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. So I haven't gone out for a walk and gotten 15 ideas of courses and things I'm going to buy and things I want to wear, or I better go get that test done, or blah, 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 from a billboard, or overhearing someone or bumping into someone and suddenly needing to come out of my visualization state and talking to them. So sleeping and walking. Thirdly is music. So it's not even quite music, it's a particular frequency of audio that I listen to. So yesterday when I did my 7.5 hour session, I was listening to, it's called ADHD Focus, but it's really binaural beats tracks that you can listen to, download, you can buy them. I subscribe to YouTube Premium, so I've downloaded them and I can just play them on my headphones. And they work with the brain waves and they just keep you in that focused state. There's other music that you can listen to and frequency that you can listen to. And for me, I can't have lyrics music because, again, I don't know if it's because I'm a writer or because I have ADD or I'm just very susceptible to messages and words, but anything with lyrics or people chattering around me pulls me out of the flow state. This is another reason why I don't work in coffee shops, and I find it very hard when there's lots of people around me to get into the flow state, because it's like a trance. It's like a natural trance, knowing how to bring yourself into a trance. I also do breathing exercises. So I set an intention and I breathe in for 4, hold for 4, then out for 4. And it's about slowing down and just coming back out of the mind and into the body. Slowing down and stopping is a big one, and not rushing. Again, I think this was Dr. Ben Hardy that said this: try to take the important things, stop doing things that are urgent. Apologies, this is in his excellent book, 10x is easier than 2x, which is totally true. He wrote that we need to stop doing the urgent things, take the urgent things out of our schedule and just focus on what's important. And so my goal is not to have urgent things in my schedule. Okay, I'm building a life, and I've built a life where I do what's important. Urgent things don't really exist unless it's a crisis or an emergency, which is out of the blue. I just focus on what's important. And so having that mentality of what's important, and you are choosing what you are prioritizing each day. And you're going to need to choose, because there's so many things you could do in that focused state, and it's about knowing what is important to you. Another thing that I do to get into the focus state is affirmations. So if I'm finding that my mind is worried, if I'm anxious, there's just so much mental chatter, if I'm impacted by a conversation that I've just had or in a lower energy because of physical problems, I just repeat an I am affirmation. Words are very, very powerful. And when you start becoming more aware of the mental patterns and the ways that you speak to yourself and the ways that you think about things, you realize it's not actually the thing that is the problem, it's the perception, because we are our perceptions. So I just come back to breath and an I am statement, and then I choose what I'm going to set up in the environment to help me get into that flow state. And I have the courage to be honest and go, okay, no, the truth is I cannot work in an environment where I have 15 people in the same room, or there's this noise that's screaming intermittently outside the building. And it's not about judging yourself, but just realizing what you need to get into that flow state. Create those conditions, create the environment that supports you, because the flow state is really how we access that higher power of creativity. It is where you write. It's that flow place is where I've been able to write thousands of words and create so many books and courses and trainings and videos and scripts, and just it is a wonderful place to go, and my goal is to go there every day. It's also about letting go. So often you'll need to create some space in your life to be able to start having this flow state. I've not always worked from home, and with undiagnosed neurodiversity, I used to really struggle in open plan offices, which is pretty much how every business that I worked for ran. I worked in corporate life and universities, everything was all open plan offices, which is basically a disaster if you have any kind of neurodiversity. I could hear people sneezing in 15 desks across, and it was just so hard to hold a thought or focus on anything. So what I used to do when I had jobs like that was I would have a project, for example, for me, and I would get up 2 hours earlier in the morning, not speak to anyone, just so that I was giving myself time every day where I was able to access that point, and I would write. And I would work on my writing project, whether it was on my laptop or on my handwritten journal, and I'd play classical piano music. I don't think I knew about binaural beats then. Light a candle and I would write, and then I'd set the alarm, because another thing is I would lose track of time completely. I'd set the alarm for when I needed to get up out of bed, get dressed, have a shower, or go to the gym, and stop. It just meant that I was getting at least an hour and a half of that every morning before I went out to the cluttered, polluted world of distractibility. But I do think that we are living in such a time of distraction, and phones, it blows my mind what we do with our phones now. And I was seeing that Netflix and movie directors and scriptwriters are now needing to build in an awareness that the audience is probably going to be scrolling on their phone while watching a movie. So they have to change some of the script so that people can still follow while scrolling on their phone. And I don't want to be like that. because it's bad for us. It's bad for our hearts, our spirits, our lives when we're not giving 100% to anything. So turning my phone off completely, not just on silent or putting it in another room, I turn my phone off completely every night, and I'm trying to do that earlier and earlier. I heard a lovely spiritual lady say that if you really want to access that creative consciousness point, turn off your phone when the light gets dark. So when it gets dark at sunset, because that's our natural way to slow down when the sun starts to set. And so staying all connected to all these 24/7 distractions when the natural rhythm of our life and our bodies are so connected to the natural laws of nature is not going to help us. So I do things like that. I also drink lots and lots of water. I make lots of hot drinks. I use scent. So certain essential oils like bergamot, basil, rosemary, pine, really fresh scents for focus and that security and stability. And lamplight, I find that direct overhead lights and lots of fluorescent lights can overactivate my nervous system, my central nervous system. And this is another reason why I have real trouble with Zooms. I used to offer Zoom coaching, group coaching calls in my program, and I noticed the last time I ran one, I said I can't do this to my body anymore, because it took me 8 hours afterwards to feel that my body had released that wired. I didn't know who I was. It was like I was out of my body. It's a full-on central nervous system activation being in these Zoom calls, because you're just hyper aware of just so much going on, and particularly if you're sensitive to other people's energies and what's not being said and all that sort of thing. And I just couldn't do it. Again, that goes back to the sleep thing as well. We need more rest than the world likes to think and train us to think. So turn things off, take time out, do less, not more, but do it with love and heart. And it is just so satisfying to get into that focused state. So my activity for you today is to think of something that you're going to stop doing or turn off. And I think you're even just taking one thing out and is going to help you to get into that focused state. And for me, it is really essential to be in solitude for some of the day, every day, because we can't hear our own. If we're in a constant awareness of how we are reacting to other people and how other people need us to behave, we lose touch with the natural instinct. And this is another reason I recommend my journaling process first thing in the morning before you've spoken to anyone, because it's a way to access that inner guidance system that we all have without it being interfered with or impinged upon by other people's energies, whether they're good or bad, whether it's your loved one or a construction worker across the road who's just started drilling. It doesn't matter. You deserve to have that time every day when it's just you and your higher self and your intuition, because you need to be able to access your own truth every day, because the messages coming through on the greater and greater technology and software that we have access to right now on our phones, in our pockets, in the airwaves, everywhere, they are very distracting and powerful, but we are more powerful. So come back to your focus and come back to your flow. I hope this has been helpful. Please share in the comments your favorite part of this video.